Each speaker will should have signed up in advance with the city clerk. Each speaker will please use the podium in front here. State your name and address before beginning the statement. You'll be limited to 5 minutes. Please address your comments to the chair, which is myself. Council will not engage in debate with the speaker. On the first bell, you'll have 30 seconds. Please wrap it up because on the second bell, I'm going to have to cut you short.
Kathy Owen.
Kathy Owen to Redfield Parkway. In 1928, the city purchased Redfield Parkway. So who owns the pillars? The city, or are they just out there floating around with no ownership? In 1987, the west pillar was struck by a city snowplow, knocking over the large column. The city had the damage repaired. The large column was moved back 2 feet and the symmetry was lost, something that can be remedied with a proposed restoration. The worst deterioration is occurring just west of the damaged pillar. I'll give you these pictures to pass around. When Dunkin' Donuts was built, the planning board requested it be crafted with exterior stonework to complement the pillars. Did the planning board envision this with the thought the pillars would eventually be lost? Or could they be thinking that they were an asset to the character of West Main Street? December 2017 editorial for the Daily Newspaper entitled Preserving Batavia's Landmark Pillars. Quote, the pillars are listed in the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Inventory of Culturally Significant Areas. The pillars ought to be saved in a city where so much past has been lost. An enlargement of a postcard, of an old postcard showing the pillars. The caption reads, entrance to the U.S. Veterans Facility, Batavia, New York. I might add the VA recently spent considerable sum of government money redoing the brick entryway to the grounds. I could say a lot about the negative attitude we seem to have in this community right now. The scathing, misinformed remarks made on social media concerning the pillars and our neighborhood. Sad, a neighborhood that for years has worked to set a good example for our community. But I won't waste my time or yours. There will always be something that needs to be done in our city that doesn't benefit everyone. I didn't start this campaign yesterday. I started it years ago. Will there ever be a right time for the city? The longer this goes on, the more divided we become. It's time to allocate the remaining Vibrant Batavia funds towards the city pillars and fund the balance next year. Thank you for your consideration.
James Pierce.
Please use the microphone.
James Pierce, 15 Redfield Parkway. Again, I'd like to address, as Kathy has so many times, what I consider the city-owned pillars at the corner of Main Street and Redfield Parkway. I think it's been determined that the city owns them. The city has spent money determining the condition of them and the need for repair. They've acknowledged that there's a need. I would just ask you to take your responsibility in maintaining your property and to move ahead and fund this. I know you have a number of things on your plate. I think all that we're looking for is for the council to say this is going to happen. We're going to vote it through. We're going to put it on a to-do list somewhere so that we know that it's going to get done. I know there's some talk about a special assessment to the Redfield Parkway people for that. I think I pay my assessment every May and every August when I pay my taxes. And that's the idea of a city, shared expenses. We share the expense. I pay my taxes, we all pay our taxes. That goes towards the upkeep of everything in the city. Now, if we start this special assessment, I wouldn't be one to ask that certain people pay a special assessment because they have a need for cameras on their street for police protection. That's our duty as a city to provide that. I don't have a problem providing my tax money towards that, and I don't think other people should have a problem providing their tax dollars towards repair of city property. It's, you know, in my opinion, your duty to take care of your property the same as it is my duty to take care of my property. And that's all I would ask is if you move ahead, get this somewhere on the list. I know it might not be a top priority, but as long as it's on the list and we know it's going to get done so that it's maintained properly. Thank you.
John Roach.
John Roach, 116 Grandview Terrace. First thing I want to say is, take the MRAP. It's a good deal. It's going to be available sooner or later. The cost is right. We can use an MRAP. Like somebody else just a little while ago said, if you never need it, great. But if you do need it, boy, you're going to be happy you have it. Number two, propellers. I think the manager came up with a fairly nice idea. Use the balance of the Fire Batavia money, about $27,000. And the people on Redfield Parkway really want the rest of the, propellers. The assessment idea, maybe $50 a year for 10 years. I think it's a good compromise. I don't know anybody except for some of the residents in that area that want any public money spent on those pillars. They just don't care. I realize that some people have an attachment to them, and most people don't. It's just a fact of life. The last thing is, somebody recently this weekend suggested for the police station, the YWCA property in North Street might be becoming available. It's a good piece of property, a fairly large lot, probably need a lot of renovation, probably some additions. I'm not even sure it's really on the market yet, but it's another possibility since it's either where you are now and Swan Street doesn't seem to be a good option. And I don't think you have any other places available right now for new stations. Maybe look in the YW. Thank you.
Any council response to comments? Redfield Pillar Project.
Yes, I've provided council several options based on discussions, and this project really came to the forefront in, I believe it was January, and we were well into the budget process, so it kind of came up. There was a question as to what the project should entail, how detailed it should be, what the actual cost was, and at that point, council authorized for an engineering firm to do a thorough review of the project to see exactly what's required, what it's going to take to restore those pillars. That work's been done. An estimated cost has been provided, as well as some engineer drawings as to what the work will require. However, we're a quarter of the way through the budget year. The project did not go through the normal review process that the budget has, and so it's kind of come in a little bit sideways in that aspect. The Vibrant Batavia money has been discussed as an opportunity to use those funds. It's a community project, and those funds were intended to be used that type of a project. However, there's still a shortfall in those costs. The only way that project could be funded this current year would be for council to dedicate unassigned fund balance to complete that gap. I don't necessarily think that would be in the best interest of a procedure for council to get in the habit of doing. It's not an emergency at this point. It's a project that's important to the community, seems to have an awful lot of interest, and should be well thought out. That being the case, just about all the other options, I would say would require this project to be put off until at least next year. I spoke to the architects. They don't think that the pillars are in any imminent danger of collapsing and could certainly last, but at some point the work should be done if the intent is, council's intent is to preserve these pillars. That gives council some options as to how they might like to fund this or what options they might take, and then I just kind of gave council a broad gamut to discuss. You have a neighborhood organization with the Redfield homeowners that is very organized and might be able to take some leadership and possibly a community fundraising, if you look at it as a community project, if that's something that they're interested in. I've also spoken to the Historic Preservation Commission. They're very interested in this project, and that they might have some ability to do some research and try to reach out to private foundations to find funding in that way. So, it could be a multi-tentacled approach, if you will. But ultimately, I provide some thoughts for council to discuss and a way to move it forward. But if there was a benefit assessment procedure that would take a few months, there's public input that happens with that, meetings that are required, hearings such as that nature that you would not be able to obtain at this current construction year, I don't believe, regardless. So just kind of a multi-faceted approach might be best, but again, I just gave some options for council to consider towards different ways to possibly move that project forward.
Any question?
If we choose to move this forward, do we put the fiber tape on the side for it for next year?
It is up to council.
Okay. We can just, stop spending it and other things, which we have
Put it
done
aside
recently,
for next year?
and just say, we're going to leave that aside and then address it in the budget. That's a possibility. Mr. Dombrowski?
My own view is the options, and thank you, Matt, for laying out options. I think that helps council think about the path forward. The last option makes the most sense to me, which is putting it into our normal budget process. We have a multi-year capital plan. I agree that sort of dropping everything right now and finding money to pay for it right now is not a good precedent to set. I think we should incorporate it into our capital plan and our budget for next year. That also gives you at least another 6 months. Maybe there's some of the community fundraising or other grant opportunities might manifest themselves. I don't think my personal view is that the benefit assessment, fiber Batavia money, I don't think they're appropriate for this. That's my own view. I think it should just be part of our capital plans. That's my view.
Mr. Barrett?
I'm going to piggyback with Adam as well. I can't believe that actually we were spending as much time as we are on this. It's a housekeeping issue. It's city property. We need to maintain it. And from the very beginning, I felt it should be a budget process that we go through. To assess the residents is an absolutely ridiculous idea in that my backyard literally abuts the Lambert Park on Verona Avenue. Lambert Park is literally my backyard. I enjoy Farrell Park every morning when I sit at my kitchen table and I look out my sliding glass doors. My kids have enjoyed that park since we've lived there, moved there 14 years ago. I and all my neighbors enjoy that park a lot more than any other resident in the city of Batavia. If something needed to be done to Lambert Park, you certainly wouldn't get $1 out of me in an assessment to do something to Lambert Park. And so these are pillars that the city owns. It's on city property. We need to maintain them as a housekeeping matter. So I'm not at all in favor of assessing the residents of Redfield Parkway. Let's put this down the road, like Adam said, into a budget process. And maybe we should, as Adam said, not even look at the Vibrant Batavia money, because that really is designed to benefit the entire community in maybe other ways. But certainly we can look at that money as an option if we need to. But let's agree to put this thing into next year's budget. We're talking 6 months down the road. So,
Mr. McGinnis?
Thank you, Council President. I fully agree with Adam and John. Let's take some time, look at this. They're structurally sound, and then cooler heads prevail. We'll put this in the budget and plan it out.
Mr. Beckhoff?
Yes, I'd like to see some kind of a firm commitment. What I've seen here has really been divisive. We are creating, it's really becoming a sociological problem. Part of the community doesn't want to pay for it, part wants it, part this, part that. It kind of reminds me when I was a child growing up, Batavia had a north side and a south side. The north side had the best sidewalks, the best curbs, the best streets. On the south side, we didn't have curbs. We used to burn leaves out in the street. Sidewalk plowing, if it went by, half the people got up and went out and waved to the guy. We didn't have sidewalks, we had cinder sidewalks, we had blacktop sidewalks. Rosemary, I think you remember some of these.
I don't remember.
Well, on South Jackson Street, we had a blacktop sidewalk connecting Warren Street to Liberty Street. There were a lot of areas that didn't even have sidewalks on Warren Street. But it was always, we were on the tail end of things. And there was this attitude, well, the north side, this stuff we don't. Whether it was true or not, I don't know, I don't care. It's just that when you get this sort of an attitude going, it kind of splits up the community. And we are one community, we're a single community. And I think we have to move forward as a community. We take care of each other, we take care of wherever you live. So I'd like to see some kind of commitment where we just move this forward so we don't have to have these same discussions 6 months down the road. Thank you.
I have to push back on this a little bit because I grew up on the south side, I've been there 61 years. I don't remember cinder, I don't remember any of this stuff. Warren sidewalk was actually a cut through. It was a cut through that kids used to walk the street and became like, I don't know, kind of eminent domain, became common property. And somebody made them pave it, so they put an asphalt pathway through there. That wasn't really a sidewalk, it's still there now. You cut through people's, between houses, and it's like fenced off and whatever. But I totally agree. Is there anyone here who doesn't agree that we should do something with the pillars?
Can I just?
Okay, so the question came up. I will, Colin, I just want to say something here. The question comes up is how we fund. So we asked for some options. Nobody said that we were going to pick the first option and assess everybody millions of dollars and pay for it. We're just looking at options. We're doing our due diligence. This is what we're supposed to do. We can't just say, yes, that's $60,000, let's just spend it and move on. We have to look at these things. So don't be offended by that. We're just throwing ideas out there and seeing what we can do. It seems like the budget process tends to be the most viable, reasonable, common process to go through. And from what I hear from the speakers, they're not asking for it to be fixed right now. They're just looking for a good, honest plan of 1 to 2 years where we get something done in the next year or two. And I think the 2019 budget is the perfect place to do that. Ms. Pacino.
Actually, I was just going to say I'm totally relieved. I came in tonight worried that I'd be the only one who felt that way. And I'm delighted because I think what they are asking for is, tell us you're going to do this. Well, we're going to do this. There's the answer. We can't do it right this instant, but yes, we all agree that we're going to do this.
I think some of the confusion was because some pillars are on city property and some are on personal property. Am I correct?
Right. A very small portion of it.
There's two like individual pillars that are on what I would call backside of the sidewalk there, it's on private property.
On private property.
And again, we have
So
to,
that's what the confusion was. Some are on private property, which you just said, and then there's the city. Okay. And maybe before budget time, we could look into, because one of your options was maybe Historic Preservation Committee. They might be able to tap into some resources where we could get some funds.
yeah, I spoke with the gentleman who does an awful lot of our grant writing and things of that nature. And I outlined the memo. It doesn't have a state or federal historic designation, which kind of cuts it off. And so really some of those avenues are those private foundations and that are specific to historic. I also reached out to the Veterans Association as well, just because it's kind of a reference that gateway to the VA. He wasn't necessarily aware of anything. We kind of said, I'll certainly keep my ears open for it. So, there's just a little bit of time after some opportunities. Maybe I don't know if you're going to come across with, $60,000, but possibly some avenues that will, curb some of that cost a little bit as well. So.
I just wanted to make a note. There was a lot of confusion because it was not all on city property.
Right.
That's why. Okay, that's all. I was doing really same thing you did, but I recall that the electrical included in the that budget you gave us, Matt?
The electrical wiring for the lightings that are on those poles.
Was it included in this?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It's restored to its original intention.
The conduit that is currently on the exterior, you can see that would be run inside the pillars, so it would be hidden, and that would be all new wiring, new connections.
So then in essence, this is coming up when we do our new budget for next year.
If you wanted to, and I suggest we strongly make that a priority for the 2019
And then there's
budget.
time, like you said, to maybe we could look at other ways of getting funding for this by the time budget time comes.
Right.
Okay. Right.
The city manager.
Yes.
So if you would, I see a consensus here, and I'm just gonna throw this out, and let me know if I'm off on this. Matt, if you would, make sure that this is a main item in the 2019 budget. And the council will vote on that budget, and if they decide to remove it at that point, that'll be something that will happen then. But at this point, we'd like to see that, we got 6 months to kind of plan on some funding and talk to the historical committee and all that, and possibly, or longer, and see if we can get this in the budget process for 2019.
I'll make sure the Director of Public Works stays on top of it.
Okay.
That would be you. All right, any other questions or concerns? So we're all on consensus, am I missing something, or is that what we'd like to do? So we're directing you to do that for the 2019 budget. Thank you.